many talents, and whatnot for that. So as always, yes, welcome to Mother's Day. And I did have a title. I normally don't tell you the titles of the sermons. They're normally at the back of your of the bulletin at the top. But I did like this one. It is Mars Needs Moms and Earth 2. Okay? So if you don't know the movie, it's a movie, Mars Needs Moms. And Earth needs moms too. We all need moms. So if you haven't called your mom today, please do so as well, because it is a very special day to do that. So, and I will say, if you're a woman of any age, hopefully you got a rose. If you didn't get a rose, please make sure you get one before you go. And I know that for some of us that have moms at home or whatnot, please grab one for them as well, because we want them to know that they're thought of and special as well. I wanted all the roses for all the women, and then bottles of wine for just the moms because they need it. I passed that through Mac. She said no. And I tried to actually defend it biblically, because as we know, Jesus' first miracle was water into wine, and you know who asked him to do it?
His mom.
Mary. Exactly. So we're going to have, see? So she's like, we ran out of wine, Jesus. You better fix it right now. Okay? So we're going to have, so if you want that idea, tell Mac, we'll even make a special label like Mary's Reserve, on it, start handing that out. So it's just a thought. If you want it, just talk. Don't worry, turtle power. Love it. Okay? But all of it is in support of our mission here at Navigation Church, and that is we exist to live the truth in love, lead others to Christ, and to grow deeper in our relationship with Him. That's what we do. And I want to start off by saying something very carefully and very clearly, and that is that every woman matters. Today is Mother's Day, and it's mostly a subset where we try to honor women in general, and I think every woman absolutely matters, because we're all made, men and women, in the image of God, and that's what gives us intrinsic value as well. But today we're honoring mothers. We're honoring mothers. And part of the reason that I feel I have to say this is because in an effort to try to be more compassionate is that our culture and even our church has started to blur the lines what it means to be a mom. And I think that even if the intention is good, when you start doing that, you end up losing the appreciation for the very thing that makes today special. And I've even had it told that if you own a plant, you're a mom, okay? I just want to say, if you don't water your plant and it dies, no one's knocking on your door. Just saying, okay? And I know that there's pet moms out there that are I love pets. I do. I love pets. But if I told you that I had to return my dog because he was making messes on the carpet and he wouldn't listen, you'd probably think that was unfortunate. But if I said I did that with my child, we'd be probably having a different discussion right now. Okay? So as much as I love plant moms and and pet moms and all of that, I think that doesn't make moms more special. It makes them less. And I want today to be special for them, especially. So, but I also want to pause here and say that I know that there are also women who want to be moms and they can't. And they are trying very hard, and there's fertility issues and even miscarriages and a lot of problems with health. And I want to also always be very considerate and caring for them, because I know that sometimes it's out of our hands as well. And so I want to, if that is you or you're having issues, please come talk to us, because we want to love you. We absolutely don't want to exclude you. We want to love and include you. And if you need to talk to Mac, we want to involve you. But the nobility, I think why we love our moms so much, is the nobility of motherhood takes a lot about what it means to be a good mother. And that's what makes it special. And have you ever noticed how sometimes people can confuse some things that are simple with some things that are unimportant? Where if it's so simple, or you're just doing one thing, that it's not that important. And I've seen that with tradesmen, where you'll have a guy come over and he just does a few wires, especially with like electricians. It's just a few wires, and it's like, why did he charge me $600 for that? Like, I could have done that. In fact, he doesn't even need a college degree for that. It must be so easy, I could do it. And having seen enough do-it-yourself electrical work and plumbing work, I hate to tell you, it might not require a college degree, but it definitely requires a lot of skill. And the idea is that just because you don't have to go to 4 years to get the knowledge and the sheet of paper doesn't mean it is not highly necessary, highly needed, and super specific. And if there's only, I see this like if only one person is doing the job, like the only one person, then it also must not be that important. Because if it was really important, you'd have more than one people. So it kind of reminds me of this. So if we have a picture, this is the IT guy from Jurassic Park, okay? So if you haven't seen Jurassic Park, this guy is the only IT guy in all of Jurassic Park, okay? Millions and millions of dollars in fence work and security and dinosaurs and research, and all they have to run the entire security of the park is this dude. That's it. Okay? And you know what's crazy? They start treating him badly. Because they're like, what do you know? You're just the IT guy. And so part of the whole problem of Jurassic Park, if you haven't seen it, is that he gets fed up and he sabotages the system and everything falls apart, and that's how the movie starts, is this guy says, that's it, I've given up. And when he gives up and he's like, do it yourself, the entire thing falls apart and people die, and that's the awesome movie. But it all hinged on this guy in IT, right? And what I found is that the guy who we took for granted was the very guy who was running the whole thing. And sometimes I think moms can be treated the same way. That they can be taken for granted, and when they stop working, the whole thing falls apart. And so today, I wanted us to look at examples of mothers that helped shape the world that we even live in today. So if you have your Bible, please turn to Exodus. Yep, we're going to the Old Testament, Exodus chapter 2. And we're going to read some verses that we know, hopefully, from a very well-known act of love and compassion by a mom. And if you don't have your Bibles, the words will be up on the screen. So it comes from Exodus 2, chapter 1 through, or verses 1 through 10. So it says this: Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. And then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. And his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. And then the Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank, and they saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby, and he was crying, and she felt sorry for him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. And then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby, nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. And when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Now, I know at least on Mother's Day, I don't hear a lot of stories about Exodus chapter 2. Mostly it's because of what happened in Exodus chapter 1, which was a mass genocide of killing Hebrew babies. And so, of course, because we want to uplift moms, we don't want anything like that, so we just kind of ignore it a lot and talk about Mary and all these other ones. But I really wanted to show that this was an amazing story for motherhood, of the challenges, of the tenacity, and of the courage that mothers have to face sometimes. And it leads me to my first point, and that is this, is that motherhood is a noble calling marked by courage and sacrifice. Courage and sacrifice. So if you read Exodus 1, if you turn your pages back at one page and you read the Hebrews are having kids a lot faster than the Egyptians. And so they're growing in numbers, and so Pharaoh rediscovers something, or he discovers something that we are actually rediscovering in our world today, and that is that children are the future. Unfortunately for Pharaoh, we mostly say children are the future in a very positive way. You know, we love children. Pharaoh had it in a very negative way. He's like, the children are the future, and I don't like that future. So whereas we look at it in a positive way, Pharaoh looked at it in a very strategic, unfortunate way. And so he realized I could do one of two things. I could either get them to, I could educate them and get them to like me, Not going to do that, or I can just remove them from the picture, because obviously the idea is that if there's no Hebrew babies, then there's no future threat, and if there's no future threat, we stay in power. And what it really started to what I really think is important about that is what's interesting is that when a society wants to weaken a people, they go after the next generation. And to go after the next generation, you have to go after moms, because they're the people who make the next generation. And that's why I think that it's so important, because when a culture has no one left to carry it forward, it doesn't become a culture, it becomes a history lesson. That's what it is. And then once you become a history lesson, this is the best thing you could probably do is become this, which I have a picture. There you go, you become a Halloween costume. When your culture is over, but we really like it, we make you a Halloween costume. And we wear you on October 31st, right? and I want you to know, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, the Egyptian theme going, I thought it through, okay? So that's why is we love our Romans. But here's something that you might not know. It just came out last month in April of 2026, is that Japan is struggling with its population so much that southern prefectures of Japan are now paying people $125 to go on dating apps. They're actually paying people to go on a dating app to try to get a match. Which, of course, means that for all you single people out there, if you set your region to southern Japan, you might have a lot more matches. Okay? Just don't say I don't help you guys out. Okay? And ladies too, But what amazes me is that when a government has to start subsidizing dating apps, we've messed up. Okay? And it's not even about the dating app, it's when the government has to start paying for that. We're in trouble, right? But that's what I said, is that when you want to attack the future, you attack moms. Because they make the future. They shape the future. They bring the future into being, and that is why they're always attacked. Which means when the future is under pressure, women and moms will be under pressure. And I think that it's one of the reasons why motherhood is oftentimes marginalized, or rather like, yeah, we like that, now let's get on with it. But I believe it's marginalized because when moms take a stand, when moms actually take a stand, and they don't have to take it, and what's amazing is they don't have to take a stand loudly. They don't have to go shout it. When they just take a stand by being a mom, what they're saying is that I choose sacrifice over convenience. Because if anything, children are not convenient. Okay? Any child is a massive sacrifice. It's just a matter of how much. Some children are more sacrificed than others. Okay? Let's be honest. But no child is not a sacrifice. And what it does is that when moms are just moms, they say, I'm choosing sacrifice over convenience. Because actually, the number one thing of why people say they don't want to be a mom, the first one is always money. But then, when you actually get down to the second and third reasons, it's what I really like, my mimosas, and I really like waking up at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, don't we all? But I think that is why moms are so powerful, because what they're actually saying is, as much as I love all that stuff, I'm willing to give that up. And that's why I think that they are saying, just with their actions, I choose a life of creation instead of a life of consumption. And in a materialistic world, that's the one thing they cannot buy. They cannot buy motherhood. You can buy convenience, you can buy your mimosas, you can buy your Starbucks coffee, which you're going to need a lot of money now. It's like $9 for a Frappuccino, But that's the one thing that our materialistic world cannot do, is it cannot make and buy human life in the way they want. And that's why you need moms, is because moms say, this is important to me. And the materialistic world says, I can't have that. And so I think the level of resistance on motherhood actually shows us how powerful motherhood is. It really is. But I will say this, despite all the struggles in the story that we have, she takes that Jochebed, who's the mom of the story, takes a stand for her child. And in fact, what I think is so interesting is that most people actually have no clue what her name is. That she does it while nameless. She's just, in chapter 2, she's just a Levite woman. They never actually say her name. And it's not until much later in the scriptures they actually do say her name. And that's one of the things that I want to do, is I want to honor her and let us see her name in the Bible for the sacrifice that she did to bring about what the salvation of the Hebrew people. So this is in Numbers 26:59. The name of Amram's wife was Jochebed. Yeah, Jochebed. Sorry. A descendant of Levi who was born to Levites in Egypt. To Amram she bore Aaron, Moses, and their sister Miriam. So what I like is, I always kind of have the question is that in the Bible it says she saw he was a fine child. If he wasn't a fine child, would she have done it? I hope she would. I hope she would have, but it's just that in the back of my mind. But what happens is that she sees he's a fine child, she hides him for 3 months. 3 months is a long time to hide a baby, okay? And I think that if we kind of go through, we might be missing this, because I don't know for a fact, but if I just kind of use my brain for a second, they probably, like Pharaoh, probably have like patrols, going through the night. And I don't know if you talk to a mom, the 3-month-olds are not quiet, okay? That they don't exactly sleep through the night. You can't exactly tell them, hey, if you could just be quiet because there's soldiers outside, I kind of want to live, And so it doesn't happen with 3-month-olds. And what's amazing is she does it anyway. That she is willing to put her life at stake. She's willing to put her husband's life at stake because she loves her child so much. And that is, by the way, I don't see that as selfish. I see that as a massively selfless act that she says, I'm going to stand up because I love my children so much. And she does it for 3 months. She does it until she literally can't do it anymore. And then, of course, she hides him. So I wanted to say this, is that motherhood requires bravery and costs. And I know that what's unfortunate when we talk so much about roles like motherhood and fatherhood and whatnot is that we know what bad moms are, unfortunately. But I want to always say that that's why I think motherhood is so amazing, is the nobility act of it, which is why when we see bad moms, it's actually unfortunate because we know how important moms are. So she puts him in a basket, she takes a stand, she rises, and she's one of the few people, at least that we know here, that took a stand against a king. And that's why I think also moms would, when push comes to shove, moms will stand for what they know is right. And that's what she does. So I had just a question. During those 3 months, do you think she was praying? Like every day, every night, 5 times a day? Do you think that she was probably asking God for protection? Probably. Like, I would suspect. Do you think that her reliance on God was much higher during those 3 months? Yeah, probably. And I think that Jochebed shows us that her reliance on God was not separate from her protecting Moses. It was legitimately part of it. And here's something that I want to connect. I don't necessarily know. It's the chicken or the egg argument. But Aaron, when you actually read, becomes the first high priest. And the whole clan of Levi becomes the priestly people, the priestly clan. And she is, as we know, she's a Levite woman. That's actually part of this was she's a Levite woman and is connected to the fact that God says, you're going to run my house. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she was a Levite woman, trusting in God, taking a stand, and now her children are the deliverers of the Hebrew people. I don't know, but I think it's at least food for thought. So as we look at this passage, I want us to realize that there's actually not one mom here, there's 2 moms. There's 2 moms in this. And I know that a lot of times we focus on one because of the massive courage, and it's very courageous, and that's why I want to lift her up and respect her so much for that. But this is my second point, is that motherhood takes different forms, but the calling is the same. So I want to take a moment to honor the act of childbirth. I think it's amazing. Not the act of, if you've ever seen it, it's horrible. But the principle, the high level where we don't actually see any pictures of it is amazing. Because without childbirth, we're not here. I actually looked up the Cleveland Health Clinic says the average first-time mom goes through anywhere from 12 to 24 hours of labor. 12 to 24 hours. Man, that is a good Netflix marathon right there. Which, gentlemen, if your wife is in labor, I do not suggest you watch a Netflix marathon while she's in labor. Like, don't. It's bad. Technique only, okay? But I do think that the physical cost of bringing life into this world is phenomenal, okay? And if you're like my mom had four children naturally, and she let me know that she had birthed me at least like every week of my life. So, you know, I don't know if you're like that. You know, it's like, hey, Scott, I need you to do the dishes. No, well, I gave birth to you, so you're going to do the dishes. Like, okay, I guess that's it. That was just like my mom's go-to for everything when she's losing an argument, but I gave birth to you, so I win the argument. I'm like, okay. So as I tell people, technique only again, I treated my mom's birth like a mortgage. After 30 years, it's paid off. Okay? Can't use it on me anymore. Like, sorry, the arguments are now equal. But I do absolutely, I'm thankful for my mom, and I hope you all are for what they did. But as wonderful as childbirth, as the birth is, motherhood does not stop there. Not at all. And it's not only defined by that. By a mom as the person who gives you birth. Because if we look in here, in the text, we see someone who stepped up and stepped in and became a mother by choice. If you look at Exodus, I just want to have a few verses up that focus on Pharaoh's daughter. It's 9 and 10. It says, Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. Oh, it's so nice. You know, so the woman took the baby and nursed him, and when the child grew older, this is Pharaoh's daughter, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son, Pharaoh's daughter's son. And she named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of water. I think that some people in our culture want to boil motherhood down to biology. And it is so much more than that. In fact, I want to say this, that motherhood is not a function, it is a calling. And because I truly believe if there was a way that every single one of us, we could have the entire human race be born in a lab without any human contact, moms are still just as needed in our society, if not more. So the idea that if we just weren't birthed from a birthing canal, that we just wouldn't need moms, I would argue we would need them even more. And that's why I know it's not just a function, it's a massive calling. It's about shaping lives, it's about protecting, it's about guiding. In fact, I want to walk you through kind of what Pharaoh's daughter does. Is that, like, she sees the basket. She sees the basket and says, why don't you go grab that? She didn't have to do that. She could have just been like, oh, the Nile has a lot of trash in it. Just whatever, okay? And what's interesting is that she said in the verses, she heard the baby crying is after she got the basket. Now, whether or not she heard it before, don't know. I just know that the way the order of operations go in the verses is she grabbed the basket and then the baby was crying. Now, I think it would be even better if she was like, let's go grab that, and then the baby was crying, because it meant that she actually had to give time, effort to that. And here's the thing. She recognizes it's a Hebrew child. That actually matters, because this is Pharaoh's daughter. Do you think she knew what her dad said in Exodus chapter 1? Oh, you betcha. You think it's like, Daddy's going to do something. Okay? So when she says this is a Hebrew child, that means that this isn't just a random child. This is a child that should die, and if she does something for it, she might get in trouble for it. And what does she do? She says, I'm going to take responsibility anyway. That is an amazing, amazing thing. Because the easy and convenient way is something we don't even want to talk about. That's not what we want to do. But what does she do? She has compassion, and she decides to do something crazy. And it is crazy, by the way. Because moms, they'll do crazy things. Crazy good. By the way, there's a crazy good thing. Moms also do crazy things. But this is amazing, is that she says, I'm going to take care of this child. That is phenomenal. Because one of the most fascinating details in this story, by the way, is at the very end. It says, she named him. Who is the she? Pharaoh's daughter. Moses, the name that we know, the one that is elevated in all the Hebrew, in all of Hebrew history, in Judaism, and amazing. He was named by an Egyptian, not a Hebrew. She named him that because he was her son. And the Bible makes it very specifically, her son. That pronoun, that's Pharaoh's daughter. And that means, that should mean something amazing to us, because, and here's what I want to say, God works through the willing, not just the expected. God works through the willing and not just the expected. Because when we live in a world of broken relationships, broken families. A lot of times it doesn't look like the way we would like, right? But through it all, there are still women who are willing to step in to fill that role in our lives because it is so needed. Those are stepmoms, they're adopted moms, they're foster moms, and sometimes they're even older sisters who have to step into a mom role for their younger sisters because moms are that important, that everyone needs a mom. Absolutely everyone. And it's a woman who says, I see something that they need and I'm going to step in, even if it costs me, even if it means that I have to sacrifice, because that's who amazing women are. And here's the thing. Some might argue, well, God put Pharaoh's daughter there because he kind of needed the whole story to work. It's like a movie plot where you're like, well, why was he there? Because he had to do that because the movie had to happen. Especially if you watch The Prince of Egypt. Awesome movie, by the way. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen it, you really should. You could argue that God put it there because he needed all of the dominoes to fall. Fair enough, because God works that way. He still used a compassionate person who had the position, maybe the only position, to do exactly what he needed to do to save his people. And the idea that because God was in there doesn't make her act any less compassionate. Any less compassionate. So, I just want to, I want to honor the women who gave us birth, because birth is an amazing prerequisite to life, normally the life part. But I also think that there is amazing women who step into those roles who need to be honored as well, because it takes a special someone to step into a role that they're willing to do. Now, we've looked at the stories of Jochebed and showing her tenacity, her courage, the compassion of Pharaoh's daughter. But I want to end us with another story that I think, again, we don't talk about, but I want to talk about because I want to honor her. And it's leading to my final point, and that is this: is that God sees the mother who feels forgotten. Before the Hebrew people were, a people, there's this guy named Abraham. You might have heard of him. We've been actually talking about him a ton in our Bible study over the last few weeks. So we like the story of Isaac a lot because it's amazing. It's what, but Isaac had a brother that we don't really like to talk about a whole lot. His name is Ishmael. Yeah, I know, you've even heard that name. But because, again, the story about Ishmael's mom is not always very nice and amazing. And so what happens is that her story is less impressive, but I think no less divine and God inspiring. Because it shows how God protects mothers who oftentimes feel unseen and exhausted and overwhelmed and have no clue what they're doing. And to give you a quick synopsis of the story, Sarah, who's Abraham's wife, can't have children. So she has this great idea. I'll have a surrogate, which it'll say, I have a servant and Abraham will have a child through her, which again, I say surrogate because we actually know that word in today's day and age, because we actually have a lot of people having children for other people. So when people are like, why would Abraham do this? Why are we doing it today? So yeah, hasn't changed in a couple thousand years. But after Hagar does have a child, all of a sudden Sarah doesn't like that and she turns on her. And she starts mistreating her, and Hagar has to leave. She just runs away because she's like, I have no clue what to do. And in the wilderness, she just runs out in the wilderness, has no plan, nothing, just like, I don't know what to do. And there in that, God meets her. God meets her. Here's Genesis 16, 7 through 10. It says, the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert, and it was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? She says, I'm running away from Mrs. Sarah, she said. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. And the angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that it will be too numerous to count. And here's the last part. She gave him the name the Lord spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. Now, I think if we're I actually think if we're honest, that a lot of people have that feeling that they're not being seen, that no one sees them, that if they just didn't do anything, no one would even notice they were gone. And I think that sometimes moms can feel that way too, especially with all the effort that they're putting in and all the sacrifice that they're doing. They kind of feel like, what is even the point of it? because if I just didn't do it, no one would even see me. And I want you to know that there is a God who sees you every day. And that's why Hagar responds to giving God a name. And I actually have this up. It's one. This is in the Hebrew. She calls him El Roi. El Roi, the God who sees me. El, God, Roi, to see, him who sees. The God who sees me. And I just want to say, don't underestimate, gentlemen, don't underestimate the power of just seeing someone. Like what I found is that as we were married, as Mac and I were married, she'd come home frustrated, and I, like a man, would be like, don't worry, I've got to fix it. It's in my blood, man. I love fixing things, okay? And men are always like, don't worry, I'll fix it. And women are like, I don't need you to fix it. And you're like, but you're complaining about it, and it seems like a really big problem. I'll fix it, like that's going to fix it. She doesn't want it fixed. She wants to be seen. She wants to be heard. She wants to have another human being that she could just vent and dump to, and you say, yeah, that sounds tough. She just wants to be seen and heard. And you know what? I can understand that now that I'm married for so long, okay? And in fact, gentlemen, if you want to fix, that's the fix. That's the easiest fix you have to do, is the one that just, you're there. Awesome. I mean, imagine if your car broke down and you just had to look at it. You just had to be with your car for 30 minutes and it would fix itself. Wouldn't that be amazing? The mechanics hate this one trick, you know, for car repair. But that's the idea, is that we have a God who sees, and I think that that is amazing. Because before we have problems, before we have all of that, he sees us. And that's what I would want to say, is that God sees all mothers in their struggles. So I want to just end the point with just a small story, very short. There was a woman, so most of us at least have heard of the Methodist Church. It's kind of still doing its thing in America. And there was a Methodist revival by John and Charles Wesley. And they did a lot. They reached millions and millions of people. But they had a mom, an amazing mom. Her name was Susanna Wesley. That's right. And we remember her sons. But she was, when John and Charles Wesley talk about what influenced them to make such an impact for God, they often cite the letters that they got from their mom, who talked about struggle and perseverance and reliance on God. In fact, she had a husband, but he was often gone, and he was even incarcerated for debt. So she was alone a lot. And I think that sometimes she's felt like a single mom, right? I mean, sometimes the hardest single mom is the one that has a husband. And what I thought was very funny is one of the famous stories about her was she would put her apron over her head, and that's, the kid said, Mom is talking to God. So you can't bother Mom if the apron is over her head, because she's talking to God. I lock myself in the bathroom, okay, if I don't want my kids to see me. That's how I did it. Now I just tell them to stop bothering me, and they stop bothering me. So it's the joy of when they get older, right? But yes, so if you are a mom who's had to blockade yourself in a bathroom or a car or something, let you know an apron can work too, okay? But as I said, the two men who made an impact for God for millions and millions of people, when they said, wow, what made you so strong? They cite one of the strongest influences of their life was their mom, who showed them what strength was when they felt alone and they felt abandoned, and they could turn to God in their time of need. And their mom showed that to them. And that's why I think it's so amazing, is that if you're someone who feels unseen, God sees you. We want to be a church that sees you. We want to be a church that lifts you up. We want to be a church that listens. We want to be a church that acts, because we have a God who, before he fixes all of the problems, before he steps in, he sees us where we're at. And that makes a huge difference. And I want us to be a church that behaves exactly like our God does. So, as we close today, I want to honor mothers, amazing moms, who and those who not only gave birth, those who stepped up, those who are maybe unconventional. I want to honor you. And so, I'll just leave you with these three quick questions, okay? Number one, in what ways have you allowed the culture to shape your view of motherhood, family, or sacrifice more than God's truth? I feel that the reason why we're including plant moms into this is because we're not uplifting those people enough. But when you effectively say a plant is just as much as raising a child, you have not raised a child. Okay? And I think that for those who have raised children, they deserve honor. They deserve our thanks. And it's not just about keeping society running, by the way, as well. I think that if you look at the greatest women in your life, how much of them have sacrificed to get there? How much of them have put in time, sweat, and tears to be that person that you admire? And that means that it's probably going to take that to be a good mom. Don't let a world of consumption stop you from enjoying a life of creation. And secondly, who in your life may need you to step in, encourage, support, or just simply see them? So, if you, I've tried to say, if for some reason you have a break with your mom, or something has happened, what woman in your life has shaped you? Tell that woman thank you. Tell that person thank you for being someone who put into my life and shaped my life when they didn't have to. That is true appreciation. And I think that we live in like I said, we live in a very broken society. Single moms, grandparents have to raise their grandchildren. I see that happening a lot more. Foster moms, big sisters, or just friends, like women who are friends who are just like, I just want to help. They deserve honor too. And lastly, I'll say this. Have you thanked your mother or women who help support you for everything they poured into your life? So we're about to end the service in a little bit. If you haven't called your mom yet, please call her. Okay? I called my mom this morning. She didn't pick up because she was probably at church because she lives on Eastern Standard Time. So I'll plan on doing that as well. And I just want to say, if you're a woman, we have a tea afterwards. That is our navigation way of showing our love and support of you. So nothing says love and support like a ton of chocolate. Okay, there's a ton of chocolate. Because I hear women like chocolate, which is okay. That's right, I see all the smiles. Yeah, women like chocolate, okay? We have a lot of it. But I do want to say thank you. And I know that if someone gave you a call and said, hey, thanks for what you do in your life, how would that make you feel? And don't the women in our lives deserve that feeling too? Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you. I thank you for moms. I thank you, Lord, that you're a God that needed a mom. Lord, that so many times we somehow think that a God who created the universe needed a mom. You didn't. You needed a mom because we need a mom. That you needed to show us just how important moms are and how loved they are and how noble a calling it is, Lord. And I just pray over our society. I pray over our community. I pray so much that we return to uplifting moms and fathers and uplifting the family, Lord, because I think that that's what we're missing so much, is we're missing the gratitude of having people who aren't living a life of convenience as much as they're living a life that creates the next life. I thank you, Lord, for so much, and I just pray that if any of the women here need help, Lord, that you'll let us be a church that can pour into them and lift them up. I just ask this in your Son's name, Jesus.